Hundreds of missiles have been fired overnight into Israel as the Beirut mayor declares there's no longer a safe place for people there. 9 Europe correspondent Edward Godfrey is in Tel Aviv. Edward, Israel's PM Benjamin Netanyahu has spoken this morning.
He has, Lizzie, and he's given quite the warning. We know the conflict inside Lebanon is ferocious. Beirut suffering constant strikes, and the UN is now concerned that the capital is facing the same spiral of doom, in its words, as Gaza. On the ground in the country's south, Israeli troops continue to advance forward, and there's been quite a jarring image today, quite a provocative one, with troops raising the Israeli flag. That was in the town of Maroun El Ras. That's where anti-tank missiles have been launched, the IDF saying it is now in control. Today has seen the largest barrage of rockets yet fired at the northern Israeli town of Haifa. We saw 2 waves while we were there today, not all intercepted, some landing. One came through the roof of an apartment block. We spoke with a man there who narrowly escaped injury. But Benjamin Netanyahu has given an address this evening aimed at the people of Lebanon. Take a listen.
Lebanon was once known for its tolerance, for its beauty. Today, it's a place of chaos, a place of war. Iran, which finances and arms Hezbollah to serve Iran's interests at Lebanon's expense. Hezbollah has turned Lebanon into a stockpile of ammunition and weapons and a forward Iranian military base.
This as the deadly blows continue in Gaza. The Hamas-run health ministry says 60 people have died inside the strip in the last day. And this, Lizzie, as the entire region anxiously awaits Israel's response to Iran's missile attack last week.
Edward Godfrey there in Tel Aviv.
Welcome back. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is warning Lebanon they will face destruction like Gaza.
For more on this, we're joined by former Pentagon operative Tony Shaffer. Tony, thanks for your time today.
Hey, Sylvia.
2 more of Hezbollah's leaders have now been assassinated. Where does this situation stand now? What's next?
The Israelis have also warned the residents along the shore in Lebanon that they plan military operations there. So it's going to continue to expand in a conventional sense, at least for now. In addition to the Hezbollah leaders, Sylvia, they're actually going to start targeting more IRGC Iranian leaders too. One of the things that's been underreported and it's been alluded to is that there have been several senior Iranians killed incidental to the assassinations of Hezbollah, so the Hezbollah leaders. So I see that coming out more as the days follow. But at this point, there's no clear indication when or if the Israelis will hit Iran directly. Right now, they're focusing on Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Slow, deliberate. Netanyahu's warning this morning was ominous, but they're taking their time.
Absolutely. And I think at this point, Carl, they're going to actually examine which targets give them the biggest bang for the buck. And I'm not trying to be funny. I think they're looking at nuclear facilities, energy production facilities, military targets. And remember, Carl, you don't have to blow up a facility if you can kill the individual. In the past, the Israelis have targeted scientists working in the Iranian nuclear program. So based on the way they're going about dismantling Hezbollah, there's strong rumors from my sources that the Israelis are going to start targeting both the level just below the mullahs as well as nuclear scientists over the next couple weeks to go directly at the Iranians.
Any hopes of a ceasefire was certainly diminished by that statement from Netanyahu this morning.
That's correct.
How do you expect, or what do you expect from the response to Iran here from Israel? The longer we wait, the worse it will be, perhaps?
So, well, we believe it may be bad. We have 2 carrier battle groups there, as you guys know. We've got the Truman and the Lincoln carrier battle groups to try to be prepared to do something if it expands past the current boundaries. And the answer is the Israelis have the initiative, and it's been very clear here in the American media. It's been made very clear, Sylvia, that Joe Biden and the United States has no leverage over Netanyahu. So it's really whatever the Israelis decide to do, it's going to happen.
He seems to be playing them off a break at the moment. Tony, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Bipartisanship on the Middle East has blown apart in Parliament. Peter Dutton saying Anthony Albanese should stand condemned over his comments on the anniversary of the October 7 attack. Joining us to discuss today's headlines is Nationals Senator Matt Canavan in Canberra and 3AW and 9 News reporter Heidi Murphy. Morning to you both. Matt, to you first. You've called for the heat to come out of this debate, but it just got a whole lot hotter, didn't it?
Yes, it did, Sylvia. I mean, it felt a little bit like being in a mini version of the Middle East yesterday in Parliament. You had the different sides, and I suppose you had the government trying to be the United Nations, just as ineffectual as they usually are, not being able to bring people together. Obviously, we're not, though, in the firing line here in this country, so it's quite disappointing that we can't just simply express condolences for something so tragic that occurred a year ago as a group. Look, I do think all sides have to look at themselves on this issue, but ultimately the Prime Minister is the leader, and I did think it was inappropriate to try and put stuff into the statement yesterday that is more policy or solution oriented. And yesterday was a day just to remember the victims, and you know, in a eulogy you don't start critiquing a person's life, you just commemorate them. All we had to do was commemorate the loss, and unfortunately the Australian Parliament doesn't seem to even be able to do that together.
So was Peter Dutton right, Matt, then to accuse the PM of talking out of both sides of his mouth?
Well, I think that has been something that's been a problem here. Look, as I say, I think it's a bit disappointing that we couldn't all just come together yesterday, but that doesn't at all weaken the loss of many Jewish Australians in Australia. We should commemorate them. There's been plenty of expressions of appropriate condolence from other Australians, from all Australians about that, so maybe we should focus on that instead of what's going on here in Canberra. It's
interesting that recent polling revealed that 51% of Australians don't want our government taking a side on the issue. Heidi, what did you make of the PM's condolence statement?
Look, I thought unedifying all around this particular motion. I thought the condolence motion good, but as Matt said, I think both sides need to look at it in this. We're talking about the politicians and the nonsense they got up to yesterday. The fact they couldn't come together and agree on one thing. Prime Minister didn't need to put some of the things in the motion that he did. Did Peter Dutton have to fire back as hard as he did? Probably not. I mean, surely there's a way to find some middle ground on something like this, but instead it's the spectacle of the politics, and no one's comfortable with that. I'm not, at least.
Well, there's certainly still a lot of talk, meantime, about this American law professor who attended Lakemba Mosque, encouraged activists there at an October 7 anniversary rally in Sydney to celebrate the occasion. He's having his visa reviewed now, Heidi. Should it be cancelled?
Yep, kick him out. Kick him out, absolutely.
No
Just
questions.
Done. No need to debate it, no need to discuss it. Why are you coming into this country and saying things like that to inflame tensions at a time like this?
Well,
why? Nah, out.
It was reportedly the last stop on his tour in Australia. He may have already left the country by the time the immigration decision comes down. But should he be blocked from returning to our country in the future, Matt?
Oh, absolutely. I agree completely there. This is inappropriate for any guest in our country to be celebrating acts of terrorism like that. So I think there needs to be a bit more rigour here about who we do let in the country, especially given the tensions that exist in our community. It took a while for the government to come around to the view that expressing support for terrorist organisations is a bar from coming into this country on humanitarian visas. It should also stop you coming here on any other visa as well.
There'll be some who will argue he has a right to free speech, Matt.
You do not have a right to incite violence in that way by celebrating acts of terrorism. That is not a right even Australians have, let alone a guest in our country.